Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, Ron Richards, Florence and Juan Bagnell is joining us. You know him as some gadget guy. We discuss ethics in tech reviews. Juan had this burning topic in mind, and so we have a nice, lively discussion about tech reviews and how people are doing it right and how some people might not be doing it so right. Also, the company Nothing has a something to show off, and we'll show you what that is. Qualcomm's Snapdragon Sound is a new announcement, and it might actually improve wireless audio. OnePlus 9 has a partnership with Hasselblad, and we're wondering what effect it's going to have on their cameras, plus your emails, and a whole lot more next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by SanDisk's Data Storage Solutions. Check out their Ultra Dual Drive Lux today and get 15% off your first order of the featured SanDisk products that you'll find at sandisk.com/AAA. And by Udacity. Build your tech skills through industry-leading programs created and recognized by top companies worldwide with a nano degree from Udacity in as little as 12 weeks. Visit udacity.com/twit and use coupon code TWIT at checkout. You'll get 50% off through May 30th, 2021. And right now, they're having a flash sale. For a limited time, use code TWIT75. You'll get 75% off through March 22nd, 2021. Hello, welcome to All About Android, episode 515, recorded on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Florence. Hi.
Oh, yeah, we're
Hello,
ready.
team.
We're ready to get it on.
And we're here
What?
with Juan Bagnell.
What? Get it on with Juan. That's what
back.
it is.
Get it on with Juan. I love that.
We're ready to get it on with Juan Bagnell. How's it going, Juan?
Well, let me just say, I can't remember the last time I got to be on the show with everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because Juan has
great.
only been filling in for you for the last couple of times, actually, Jason.
Yeah.
Because you
That's
keep,
true.
taking
stoked.
your vacation
And-
time.
No, and thus ends the great feud between Jason and Juan. They've buried the hatchet, and now we can all come together on the show. So
Yeah, well, what we're
it'll
doing
be in my
today.
memoirs.
Yes.
It'll be good times. Just how Jason and how it all went down. Lots of drama, BTS, and I'm glad to finally, bygones. It's really great to be here finally.
I know it's good to see you too. Just don't talk about the thing. If you could just keep the thing quiet.
Keep the
okay?
elephant
Month
out of the room.
is the word.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And then we'll continue this good. Well, actually, what this is this proves that we're not the same person. So there's that.
Yes.
That's also true. Yeah.
Either way, it's great to have you back, and it's great to have us all on the show when you're here. I did not even realize, but that's totally true. When one of us is out, Juan is the person that we call.
He's a go-to.
So
He's a go-to guy.
Right.
Before we get started, I do want to thank everybody who's reached out to me on Twitter in response to my ignorant Android Auto observations. This week, I learned that Android Auto is directly tied to my dashboard brightness, and because I had my dashboard brightness turned all the way up, Android Auto was not in dark mode. And so if I just clicked the brightness one click down, boom, Android Auto went into dark mode.
Wow.
So problem solved.
Well, that's
That
great,
is
Ron, because
indeed.
this is your new beat now. So
totally.
you gotta be on the pulse of what's going on with your new car.
Well, that's the thing. So Juan, I now live in the suburbs. I got a car. I have two kids and a car, and I have no time to actually play with Android Auto because all my life is I got to get to the store before the kids wake up, or I have 5 minutes to go get dinner before I have to do the show, and whatever. So I'm ignorantly discovering Android Auto. So that's my beat.
Not ignorantly, just rushedly.
One little thing off,
and only periodically because you can't dive into it.
Yeah, slowly but surely, like most people do, I would imagine. Big thanks to Lee, who wrote in an email to say, hey, Ron, we'll go ahead and take that email out in our email block. Ron, kind of spoiled the ending there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It wasn't the email of the week, thank God.
So. Wasn't email of the week. But Lee and so many other people.
I think we should still do it. We should still do Lee's email. We'll do it.
Okay,
so.
Lee.
I see.
We'll give you an official read a little bit later, and Gary for a great photo that ties in.
That's a teaser. That's a teaser for it. I'm sorry. That's
stay till the end, everyone. This is why you need to stay towards the end of our show. Remember, we reconfigured all of this stuff. We took away the arena, and now we are giving you nothing but your feedback and your experiences. It's for you, people.
It's for you. We do this for you. These awkward moments are for you, ladies and gentlemen.
They really are, and we'll keep them coming because I know it's selling. Wink.
All right, so one of the reasons that we have you on, Juan, as you know, but as people watching and listening do not, is that a couple of weeks ago you emailed me in response to a Windows Weekly episode that had it was episode 712, where there was a discussion about Intel's reaction to Apple's M1 processors, and kind of it merged into a few different areas. But one of the discussion points there kind of talked a little bit about gadget reviews online, and kind of pointed to kind of like truth in these reviews, and what the reality is when you peel back the layers behind the scenes, how it is for all these people, and we are absolutely included, when we have a device to review, how those devices come to us, what are the expectations that the places that we're doing these reviews for have on us, what are the expectations sometimes that even the people that are sending this hardware, they might even have expectations. I'm not really run into that very much, but a whole bunch of ideas and angles to this. And you said you were interested in kind of talking about this, and that you had some things to say, and it really does sound like a topic that is perfect for the top of today's show. So let's talk about it. What was it about that about that discussion specifically that kind of caught your attention?
Well, it definitely spoke to a number of things that I think those of us in the tech gadget review community, and then also our audiences, have been kind of clued into recently. And there are certain expectations that a gadget review should fulfill. And there are certain conversations that I feel need to take place in our community as it pertains to more media literacy. And this is something that we're seeing kind of across YouTube. It's funny that there are other communities like cooking channels and cooking blogs that are starting to talk about very similar situations to what we talk about in the tech community. And they're starting to do these deeper dives on like content farms and this like clickbaity approach to titles and thumbnails. And it just feels like this, as we kind of get out of this last year of how we've been just living our lives online, it seems like the right time to follow up on these conversations. And what really struck me, again, in Windows Weekly, I feel like we're really good at identifying certain parts of it. And then there are some areas where we're really comfortable, where we don't want to look at our own behavior, we don't want to look at our own contributions. And I just think it's funny when you've got like the trio of folks that host Windows Weekly saying, well, now you've got a whole crop of these young kids reviewing, and they're doing things different. And like, I don't know that this is an age or generational issue. I think this is a much broader conversation we should be having across our whole community.
Oh my
gosh! And I will just say real quick, I watched that segment through today to get a better understanding. And I mean, I will push back and just say, like, they do acknowledge, like they threw that
Mary
out.
did. Mary
and then they come back and say, well, I'm not really quite sure. And that kind of changes the direction of the conversation. I will say that, like, I have definitely heard or seen the conversation pegged in a way that's like, there's tech journalists over here, and then there's YouTube reviewers over here. And the YouTube reviewers are the real, they're the ones that, have no care in the world to follow journalistic integrity and blah, blah, blah.
Well, listen, you gotta give us a break here, because, we did go to school and all this stuff. And so we want to make it seem like we our time was worth it in the trenches, so to speak. So we are, definitely projecting. We were definitely projecting a lot in the beginning. I was also a huge projector until my boss came to me and said, you need to be on YouTube. So.
But being on YouTube doesn't necessarily suddenly remove any
I'm
sort of.
just trying to say, because of the way that the mediums have changed over the years. I mean, God, the internet has exploded so much. And so the reviewing and the journalism and the whole landscape needs to evolve to catch up with the way it is now. I think that's what, Juan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's where the gist of what you're trying to say.
Well, and that it's a very complicated and tangled conversation. I mean, just look at what we're doing right here, where we're talking about YouTube as if it's an internet institution that is enshrined in some kind of, permanent solution. And what passes for YouTube today is very different than the YouTube from 5 years ago, which is very different from the YouTube that I started using when I first started creating content. 100%. And I think it's also. And I think it's also on us to sort of explain our process as it relates to changes. We're constantly playing these games of trying to appease or game around algorithms. We're trying to figure out what's going to be the next popular trend in SEO. And this seems to be an escalating situation for a lot of content creators out there. And I think it enforces some concerning trends. I think it can create some really bad habits. And I think it also sets up some very toxic expectations with various pockets of communities, different pieces of audiences start to get that echo chamber effect back on their own point of view. And it makes it really difficult to broaden our conversations back out. It makes it very difficult to bring new tech fans into the fold because we're becoming increasingly
new voices.
These warring tribes of gatekeepers.
Yeah, I mean, you see this a lot when one thing that they mentioned in that conversation that I know and that I recognize because I review hardware, but I'm definitely, at least for my own experience, I am not in the top tier of reviewers, let's say, if there is such a thing, right? The companies know, as I think it was Mary Jo pointed out, or maybe it was Paul, I can't remember, but one of them pointed out that the companies know the people that they are willing to put the technology into the hands of initially, like the first of the reviewers that, you might see that review hit on day one, and then you've got the second tier and whatever. And it's like they are playing a game of picking the right people, putting that into air quotes, the right people that have the more likelihood of projecting the image of their product that they hold. I don't know how much influence actually plays into that as far as direct influence, aside from the fact that, hey, I'm a company and I've got a piece of hardware and I'm giving you first access to it. Oh, I'm a reviewer. That feels really good to get that. Do you think that sort of relationship changes the review approach? I know for me, I've never been put in that situation, but I don't care if a company has sent me a phone or not. I'm going to tell you if I actually like it or if I don't. And I don't feel bad about it at all, but I'm curious to know what you think.
I have to say, I think that's been one of the more apparent changes in the sort of manufacturer and YouTube content creator, YouTube influencer, YouTube reviewer. Because I kind of feel like it's worth kind of separating some of those ideas apart. What I think we've seen, especially over the last couple of years, has been kind of a ratchet into YouTube's algorithm. YouTube prioritizes this hard trending topic. There's a steep drop off for your audience. Once a topic starts falling out of kind of that tentpole popularity, YouTube videos, the watch time, the views, the metrics all plummet. So we know that topics are very short-lived. And so what I think companies have gotten really savvy about, last year, I wrote an editorial that I was really proud of about how Microsoft was sort of gaming the review community. You put out a product like the Duo, the review community is so predictable that Microsoft correctly called what all of the criticisms of the Duo were going to be, what all of the shallow reviews of the Duo were going to fixate on, and they posted a first round of embargoes that you literally couldn't show the screen in your videos. They wanted you to focus on some of the highlights of the hardware, the build quality, and we talked about this on a previous one of my previous appearances. So rightfully, I think a number of people were critical of Microsoft's approach to handling the online review community, but to the same token, we're not really too analytical. We're not really too critical of the review process with Apple or Samsung. And we see a very similar trend. There's a select number of people who get the device embargo. They get to put out a first wave of very shallow feature videos, not reviews, but very shallow feature videos once the press conference goes live, once we get our Samsung Unpacked. That floods YouTube to try and cast as wide a net as possible. And then there's usually about a 2 to 3 week period before consumers can buy the devices. And just as consumers are able to buy those products, that's when your second wave of proper reviews hits. And that sort of sucks all the wind out of the sails from people who will review the product later and have to buy it with regular consumers. Once regular consumers get their hands on those products, the SEO has just fallen off a cliff. Your Samsung videos are just performing like garbage. The final word has already been made, and it's been made by people that are selected. It's made by people that are targeted by Samsung for a certain style of reviewer commentary.
But I mean, the companies, they're going after who has the first hit, who is going to be the first 3 hits on google.com when you're searching for this device, plus review, plus hands-on, whatever. And the same, goes for YouTube. The companies have been studying the different media, the different people who are covering this. They have, binders and binders of profiles on all these folks. And so that's how they sort of decide that. I'm just sort of wondering, like, I feel like this discussion has been in the ether for quite a while, but what is the solution? Because it's frustrating, because it feels like I don't have really the power to change it. It really is up to the viewers and listeners and readers of this content to, I guess, in a sense, vote with their dollar, because when they're watching something, that's $1, so to speak.
Vote with their attention.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like there isn't. We're not to a point where we can discuss solutions, and I don't feel there ever will be. Marketing is always going to be an arms race. When a new trend comes out in how we can manipulate traffic on social media, that catches like wildfire. Major corporations are able to leverage those advances in marketing more readily because they have the ability to fund those changes. And then it kind of takes a little bit for consumers to catch on, and then things become they fall out of fashion. And so right now, I feel is the right time to have those conversations about media literacy. Where does your content come from? When you go to YouTube, are you really seeing your list of subscribed channels, or are you seeing a very cultivated view on what YouTube wants to keep you on site to watch? Is there a reason why you feel like all of these videos are the same? What kind of data are you feeding into your social media feed? And organizations like YouTube are now starting to do business in a more Facebook-like way. We can criticize Facebook for you've got a community and you've got thousands of followers. When you post something, Facebook doesn't enable you to reach your audience. Facebook stands in between you and your audience until certain criteria have been met, or until literally you just pay Facebook to get full access to all the people. I will say
TikTok and Instagram, by the way, are about the same. TikTok is a little more, because I feel like they're a little more reliant on just sort of the community aspect, because they have that For You page where anybody can sort of game it with the tag. But on Instagram, there was a blog post recently put out by a creator who figured out the algorithm that you have to post a certain number of times in a certain number of content to get circulated. This is all to say that the whole system is gamed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or gameable.
And that's the thing is that it's funny because I've been quiet as I'm listening to you guys talk about this, because Juan, you're 100% right, and this is what's but the thing is that this is what's gone on forever. Like, we could talk to. I'm sure that I'm sure we could talk to Leo, who has like a ton of perspective on this from his time in the in the industry, but also like talking to my friends, like talking to Patrick Norton, who worked in magazines before jumping on TV and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. I remember reading, because my dad used to get InfoWorld, and I used to read PC Magazine, and I'd read Robert Cringely, and I'd read all these like 90s kind of old school tech reporters, and the same stuff would happen where the companies, to your point, it's like swarm ball. They go to where the eyeballs are, and they go to where they can leverage it. And it reminds me of like so I have a media degree. I don't have a specifically journalism degree, but a portion of my schooling was journalism, which has been practically useless. But anyway,
true.
But in my career, I've worked in music journalism. I've worked in obviously comics journalism, as well as TV and film, and now tech. Right, and it's all the same. I remember when I was a music journalist, I would write a bad review of a band's record, and then I could figure out who were the good record labels, because if I gave a bad review, if they still got me on the guest list to go see that band, or if they said no, right? If they say no, then clearly they're judging me based on my review. But if they said yes, they understand that it's my job to report on it and all that sort of stuff, right? And that's the delineation. And what's happening is that so the companies are taking where they can get the attention and get the message they want to get out there. And that's no different than any company has done in forever. But the way the platforms are, it's moving so fast. It's like Moore's law on crack, right? Because the algorithm changes, and because all this stuff changed, and it's eroded to the point you talk about media literacy, that ship has sailed. I mean, like we're coming out of a period of the past 4 years where that has basically not only eradicated, kind of the standard levels of decency just across people and humans, but within media and media trustworthiness and stuff like that. And it's become tribal, right? And what's going on in the political landscape.
To that token, Ron, I feel now is the right time to have that conversation, because I still have some hope for humanity. To say the ship has sailed means that we wouldn't see any effective change in any kind of policy. And I don't believe that's true, especially when we see the consumer backlash against platforms like Facebook, when we have, consumers pressuring politicians to regulate those sectors in that industry better. When we see these trends change, YouTubers are now having to jump through a lot of extra hoops for things like proper disclosure on ads, for proper disclosure of relationships between companies, how we might produce content that's aimed at children. So it's not a pie's been baked. It's what are the current trends, and what trends should we be deeming unfashionable over this next generation, over this next year of content and content creation and content delivery. And one of the things that I think is definitely sort of in the crosshairs right now is how consumers respond to social media, how consumers engage with social media, and how people who engage on these platforms are to be handled in a media landscape that is very fluid right now, especially as we start looking at sort of a renewed interest from the FCC and the FTC regarding how these platforms are to be managed. We are talking about revising the regulations of the Communications Decency Act. Section 230 kind of plays into exactly what you're talking about. And to that token, I mean, if we had kind of shrugged our shoulders with the apathy of, well, that's the game and that ship has sailed, I mean, we'd still be talking about radio stations and payola.
Well, I don't mean it that way. What I mean is that this is the same. It's the same strategy. It's the same playbook that companies have done over years. And then as it changes, the companies and the content creators are going to adapt to base what the changes are. It's ever evolving, and it's never stopping. And like I guess I'm I love you, and we're both optimists, and we're both we love this world that it can bring. But I'm also somewhat of a pragmatist, because I've got 20 plus years of working in media under my belt, and it's not like there's no. I've let the ship sailed on the idea of a utopia where the only the good kind of content rises to the top and all stuff that the amount of clickbait and the amount, I mean, I deal with it on a daily basis at my day job, like the amount of misinformation that it's hard, I try not to talk about it here, but for those who know, I work at the Walt Disney Company. I work for Marvel, and watching WandaVision roll out, and the biggest criticism of the show was the fact that bloggers and YouTubers who came up with these crazy theories and set these crazy expectations that fans then watched and read and then were disappointed when they didn't happen. Like the snake ate its own tail, right? Like there was no basis. There was no basis of fact. There was no basis of any truth, and it distracted from the actual art that was made and was presented on a weekly basis.
And so, I think what you're describing is an amazing opportunity for consumers to also revise their relationships with those outlets. And this is exactly what I think the tech community needs that sort of self-reflection on. Recently, I did a kind of a gimmicky video just talking about a Reddit meme that was posted about YouTube tech reviewers. And like when you're looking from the outside in and you get to hear directly how people are talking about our community and how they're responding to our community, you start to understand, oh, we really, for all of these influencers, and they look like they've got these huge, amazing channels, we are reaching a very tiny community of smartphone enthusiasts.
Echo chamber.
And so when you're talking about something like WandaVision as sort of, a different subject, but I think there are some correlating data trends that we can look at. What this ends up meaning is all of those consumers who got real roped up into those theories and really like gave some effort to those outlets a lot of them are going to get turned off and walk away. And we see this regularly in the smartphone community too. So it's not just a commentary on the people who are consuming this media need to understand about media literacy. It's also a conversation about content creators, influencers, and reviewers also taking a step back and looking at what is it that I'm really trying to accomplish here. Because like I said, it is so much harder to bring new people into this fold than it is to lose people. And for an industry that sells over a billion phones a year, I think 2020 we saw over 1.5 billion phones sold. If we took every single top tier YouTube channel and every viewer was a unique viewer, we would maybe be influencing 3% of the market, maybe, with a trickle down effect that could maybe spread to 10. So if we're not keeping a healthy, open, broad discussion on these products, then we're doing a disservice to our community. Our communities are getting bored and leaving, and they're not coming back.
You're getting churn. You're getting churn. Like that's the thing is that like it's a small
but it's not
number.
Getting replenished.
Right. It's not getting replenished and it's not growing. Right. Yeah.
So I mean that's what I'm saying is it's not just hey, we can look at some past events in media marketing for movies. I come out of Hollywood, you come out of music. We can both after this is done share some really toxic stories, I'm sure. But if we're not learning these lessons and we're not
toxic stories. Sorry, go on.
Well, again, certain industries kind of attract.
Yes. I know. I'm sorry. I just. International Women's Day. It's been a week already for me, so go on.
And it's only Tuesday, Flo.
Monday was a whole week of work for me. But that's where I think we kind of get caught up. If we're playing fast and loose with how we handle this media, I don't think we're communicating the right idea. And I have to give influencers a lot of credit because I feel like there's been that change. Recently it's if something's an embargo, we're not seeing the word review applied as much, but maybe it's a first impressions, maybe it's a hands-on. But when we see some of these trends still extrapolated out with a peak of content and activity right before consumers are able to buy the product and then a steep drop off, and we know that Samsung and Apple are banking on that as part of their core online media strategy, then we need to have some frank conversations about how we handle those relationships with those companies and with those organizations. And that's also why I feel like consumers are so deflated. The idea of buying new gadgets and new tech today is an exhausting process. It's not an exciting process. Yeah. And we see those headlines regularly, like 9 out of 10 consumers see no benefit in buying a new smartphone. And I feel it's in part because we keep overpromising, under-delivering. We're amazed by press release PowerPoint slides, and then the reality of the product is very similar to the product they were replacing. And it's really on us to kind of take that self-reflection, that moment, that look, to say, we could be going about this a different way. We could be incorporating new channels of education. We could be trying more outreach, trying to bring more people to these conversations, not just kind of putting on the trappings of average consumer expectations, but really reaching out, because I don't know average consumers that are really, really super concerned about the pixel peeping color science of $1,100 phones. I know average consumers that are shopping average median smartphone prices. So it's really on us. And this is kind of why I feel, as a community, both people who consume this content and people who produce this content, now is a good time for us to just get a lay of the land, really see what it is that we're hoping to accomplish.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff. I was going to ask, so have any of us ever had a PR person ask us to change our reviews? And I realize I want to ask it not to call out anyone, but I think there's a lot of view from the outside looking in, thinking that PR is incredibly manipulative. My experience has not been that. I do not feel like I have been like in the spotlight of manipulation from a PR person, but maybe I've just had the right people, or maybe I just don't care.
No, they can't. I think that it's funny thing because I have had that happen to me, but not in tech and not with PR people. When I was working in comics journalism, I've had the actual creators who I was reviewing flip out at a negative review. And the thing is also, like, when you're in a small community like that, and also happens in tech or something where you forge friendships and then like threaten the friendship because of your review. Yep. And it's just like, it's like, oh man, you got to take a step back and look at the world. Like that's
when you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like PR people know that's a line you can't cross.
Well, it's really tricky, but we have actually seen some recent stories in tech. Like, for example, there was an issue with an individual MSI PR rep that wanted a very specific kind of language used in a laptop review based on performance. There was recently Hardware Unboxed having issues with NVIDIA over the kind of benchmarking that they do with ray tracing. I'm sitting on an earbud review. I've got the video shot. It's a positive review. The company is asking for certain sponsorship language, which there's no money being exchanged, and I don't charge for reviews. I don't do sponsored reviews, and they're wanting a very specific kind of language to be used for like their branded versions of technologies, which I'm being very cagey and very specific about how I'm not saying them. So it happens. That's a PR team I'm never going to work with ever again after this experience. But they've also wasted my time. So they've chilled me out. I have a review shot. And their time too. And they sent product. And even the shipping costs and me sending this back because I wasn't going to pay for it. I made them send me a label. All of this adds up. So again, we can find some of these examples. Those are typically a bit fewer and farther between, because those are PR people that are bad at their jobs. A PR person is all about building relationships. The broader trends on top of that is, once you've cultivated the relationship, it's just making sure you're just staying consistent. Obviously I'm very upfront about what brands and what products that I personally use and that I personally enjoy. And there's a lot of joking at my expense on various online commentaries and Reddits. But to that, it's being able to kind of bridge that against very consistent application, very consistent use, so that even if I really like this company, or if I just have a really good relationship with this PR rep, I can just show data. I've got an opinion, you know what my opinion is, and you know how much to weight my opinion, but then I can also show you camera work, video work, photography work, the benchmarks and performance. And that I can't have an opinion on. These are just the numbers that I can generate to add to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've had companies, to your point, Juan, freeze out based off feedback, but never asked to retroactively change something or get that sort of thing. But it's been like, okay, they're not going to send me stuff anymore because I'm not talking about them favorably. So.
Yeah,
it's their loss.
I've had numerous PR fallouts, and some of them pretty high profile. Or also, just when I was at Pocket Now, just the amount of work it took to kind of rebuild some PR relationships was what was an exorbitant amount of work and ring kissing to like, no, we're cool. We're pals again, remember? And we're paying to fly out to all of these events and show up and talk about products. And hey, isn't this neat? And, those are the expenses that kind of add up when you're trying to run an outlet, when you're trying to cultivate that. So those on both sides of this equation, those relationships are expensive to invest in. Yeah. They're not to be taken lightly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm happy that we had the opportunity to kind of talk about that and keep this conversation going. The next time one of us is out, you'll fill in for us and we can continue the conversation. That seems to be how it works these days. So awesome. Thank you for sharing on that. Good conversation. Let's take a moment and thank the sponsor of this episode of All About Android. And then we're going to get into some news. And then a little bit later, some hardware. We got some stuff coming up for you. So stick around. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by SanDisk. And this is all about backing up, and particularly not just backing up on your computer, because maybe you've done that. Like, I don't normally think about backing up the content, the data on my phone, because it's not always that easy to get to some of the data on my phone. So it might be something that I think of right at the point that I'm going to like wipe the phone, format the phone, erase it, whatever. Then I think about, okay, well, what's on there that needs to be backed up? And anything could happen to that data anytime before then. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to do it. So, everything gets worse when you're using that phone and you get that out of storage pop up and you realize, oh, dang, now I have to do something about it. But thanks to SanDisk, managing your data storage is actually very easy. They have the Ultra Dual Drive Lux. It's a 2-in-1 reversible flash drive. Has a USB Type-C and a traditional Type-A connector. I actually have one. You're showing the site, but it's pretty cool. It kind of slides out like that. So I can plug it into my phone with the USB-C. So my phone has the USB-C, and then I've got the USB-A for plugging it into my computer. So I can transfer all the files onto here, and it doesn't really matter what the connector is on either side. It just plug and go. It's pretty awesome. Makes it super simple to back up and share files across any of my devices. The Ultra Dual Drive Lux allows you to, like I said, you just plug it in, you start freeing up space. You can choose from 32 gigs up to 1 terabyte of storage. And it's just all about taking that data from one device and moving it over to the other with minimal friction. You can automatically keep a backup copy of your data on the drive. You can free up valuable space that you need so you can make the most of your phone's capabilities. And I mean, it's awesome what you can do with this, right? Like, it's just so nice to have a thumb drive that works, especially with my Android device. Like, when I think of using a thumb drive with my smartphone, usually I need some sort of like a dongle, like something like this, so I can plug it into the USB-C, like this huge thing, in order to plug in something that's meant to be really portable. It just kind of makes it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. But with this, I can just plug it in. It automatically recognizes it. I can go into the file manager on my phone. It immediately sees that there's a mounted drive, and I can do whatever I need with that storage. It's made to fit my Android device, and it's kind of what I love about it. Trust me, you should check this out for yourself. It really is great. It's a 2-in-1 drive from SanDisk, and it's awesome. And right now you can get 15% off your first order of featured SanDisk products, but only when you go to sandisk.com/AAA. That's SanDisk.com/AAA, and look for the Ultra Dual Drive Lux. Pretty cool stuff, SanDisk. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of All About Android. All right, Burke, I hope you've got that finger ready on the button to play the news bumper, because it's time for news.
All alternative payments systems, as long as they're cash, are accepted here on Android News.
And made out to Burke. Burke's App Store is open, and he's accepting your payments now. Apparently, in the state of Arizona, there was a bill that got an amendment that looks to be a way to force companies like Apple and Google to support alternative payment systems for apps. They specify in the bill, in the amendment, more than 1 million downloads on the app. So this is kind of targeting, I mean, 1 million sounds like a lot, but really when you go to like the Play Store, for example, I mean, so many apps, that's like the baseline. Obviously, you've got your indie developers that are working to get there, but there are so many apps that just have tens, hundreds of millions of downloads at this point. So this is really targeting the large major players. It would prevent those companies, like Google and Apple, from forcing developers to use their payment models or their payment systems, and instead would allow them to use their own or use a third-party payment system if they chose. It would also bar Google and Apple from retaliating against the developers if they chose to do that. From my understanding, this applies, at least in this case, specifically to apps that are developed in Arizona. So I don't necessarily think that this is like the saving grace in and of itself for Epic Games and Fortnite, which is kind of the marquee example of what's going on right now between developers and these big tech companies trying to solve this payment issue. But it does seem to symbolize kind of a larger momentum and efforts in other states. Hawaii, Georgia, Minnesota all have similar bills that are working their way through the courts. North Dakota had one. It failed to pass the state Senate. But from what I understand, the Arizona one, like this is through. It advanced through. So I don't know. I think the question that I have for y'all is 30% cut. That's what Apple and Google are taking when, a developer is using their payment system. They take 30% because you're welcome. We allow your app to be in our distribution store, and we point people to it through marketing and search and all this stuff. We do this is their argument. We do all of these things that justify the 30%. What do you think? Do you think it justifies 30%? You have the floor.
I don't make money this way, so I guess I'm just not. It's hard for me to sort of like really understand it, not being a person who's embedded in the industry, nor I haven't really reported around this topic much. But it's true that we need to have a little more regulation in the sense that Apple and Google, it should be an equal level playing ground, I think, for developers, instead of having to, decide not to be on a very widely used platform just because of how much money they take. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a tricky situation, especially as we saw some of the antitrust hearings, where I think recent moves by Google will probably help keep them out of antitrust investigations for the Android App Store, because they've been trying to but they've been recently making moves to make it easier for having alternative app stores on Android devices. Apple obviously has zero interest in a similar business practice. So it's interesting to see. I think, Apple's strong lobbying against this in Arizona is likely because of how easy it might be for a smaller app developer to set up a little LLC in Arizona as just their payment processing. And then they would be able to enact some kind of change for that distribution or for that model. It's tricky to say, because right now on a lot of services, especially when we look at games, the game is a service. The game is mostly facilitated through the developer's servers. They're doing all of the work to improve the game. And it's tough to say, just to have access to a potential customer who owns an iPhone, you've got to pay us 30%. And I think this definitely rings for why I think Apple is in a more actionable position for antitrust, is because their app store can be more punitive. Like when Facebook took their payments, took their fees off of charitable donations. Now, you could contribute money to this page or to this cause. They would list Apple is taking a fee, Facebook is not taking a fee, And Apple pushed back against that and made them change the language in their app so that Facebook could not deliver proper disclosure as to where those monies were going. So when you see business practices like that, or some of the larger developers that have had issues with the Apple App Store, WordPress, I would highly recommend people read up on the back and forth that happened between Apple and WordPress as another example of clarity is really one of the major issues here. Actually, from all this legislation, whether or not that app fee changes, what I think we need to see is a much more public sort of accounting for how Apple does business with their developers. Right now, it's kind of a black box, and it's up to Apple's discretion, and everyone's just sort of quietly playing along. But that's gonna make these conversations, I think, more damning for Apple in the long run.
What a wild ride. So much is just changing the way we're doing business across these platforms.
Yeah, it really is.
It really, really is. It's just, I mean, I've worked on a bunch of apps over the years, but none of them were directly monetized. They're all free apps, and they were, like that sort of stuff, right? I can't imagine what it's like to be in a game with all the gems and all that nonsense and trying to eke out, like there's a reason why that underbelly of apps exists because of this monetization ecosystem that's been developed, which I mean, from the get-go, I've always thought was a bad thing. So I'm glad to see it's changing, or could change. Yeah. It's not necessarily changing. Has potential.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of put this in the category of more choices is probably better. Like, I can understand Apple and Google saying, hey, we've got the platform, we've got the eyeballs, we're worth it. But giving a developer the option, like, why would I feel like that's a bad idea? How could I feel that that's a bad idea?
Yeah.
If the developers ultimately, it's their baby. They worked hard for it. At the end of the day, I feel like they should be able to choose. And
and I think it would be a benefit for Apple's PR. If you're broaching these topics with more clarity, right now there's kind of a conversation vacuum. Like, what is Apple's relationship with Spotify if they've got a competing service? If I pay for my Discord server, I go to Discord and they say, hey, you can't pay for Discord through an iPhone. You have to go through this web browser. Again, there's just a messaging vacuum, and it might turn out to be, like maybe Apple is offering developers something that's worth this 30% cut, but they're not being clear, and they're not, sort of communicating that. There's a lack of communication actually making it to consumers about how and where we want to spend our money. If you want to make a decision to support someone or support a developer, and you're worried or you're concerned about how that money is being distributed right now, Apple's business practices are very proprietary. They're very locked up. They're very secretive. That just doesn't look good. So if nothing else, I think, refining these policies and making them more clear, more consistent, more easy to follow is actually just a boon for the whole industry. And I think in the long run would end up being better for Apple in these types of legal situations.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. Well, moving on. Juan, I'm excited that you're on the show for this next story. I had no segue for this other than that. But so listen, Qualcomm announced Snapdragon Sound last week, and it's all aimed at improving wireless audio quality. High resolution wired quality audio wirelessly was the quote coming out of it. The first devices to support it will appear in a few months. Xiaomi and Audio-Technica are announced as partners in the endeavor, and it's going to offer improvements for high-res music. It lowers latency to 89 milliseconds, which is good for gaming, and improved voice call quality. So, Juan, do you think that high-resolution wireless audio could be a reality? Is Qualcomm going to crack it, or are you skeptical?
Sorry. I was just. Oh, excuse me. I just had this crazy Snapdragon Insider hoodie here. Oh, pardon me.
So before you're on the take with Big Snapdragon, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to disclose where you got your sweatshirt?
Hashtag ad.
I actually do. I am one of the launch Snapdragon insiders working with the Qualcomm team. We're partnering on a whole branding messaging campaign. So everything that I said in the sort of the first segment of this podcast, you can now throw out the window and know that I'm a total Bluetooth audio shill now, which should get a chuckle out of Ron for all the debates we've had.
At least know yourself, you know?
Yep. This above all to thine own self be true. So I do actually properly need to disclose that I will be working with Qualcomm on this rollout, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation because one of my very first conversations with their PR was, hey, just so you know, I have been extremely critical of Bluetooth audio, and when we reach out for questions from our community, these are the questions that you are going to get from my viewers. These are the criticisms that you're going to find from the people who watch my content. And to their credit, that was one of the main reasons why they started talking to me and they wanted to bring me on. This is an initiative by Qualcomm where they don't believe these products can get better if they aren't getting direct feedback. And right now there's kind of like a stumbling block where someone will get a product and then complain to me on one of my videos. And I'll say like, well, hey, did you try reaching out to the manufacturer? And like the thought had never crossed their mind. Like I was the face of that product because they saw the review. And so they're actually hoping to engage in, I think, some more direct conversations about where audio could go. But of course, even with that, one of Qualcomm's main technologies, Ron, is Qualcomm Acoustic, which is 32-bit audio for cabled audio connections. So it's not like they're completely walking away from those of us who still might be using some wires to get our work done.
Juan, can I just say that it is to your credit that you are doing this because you have been such a big advocate for having just true audio for consumers. And this is a conversation that you've been facilitating for years. So it makes sense that, you know, your audience is interested in talking about this. So give yourself credit here. I just want to interrupt to say that, okay?
No worries.
And obviously Qualcomm knows to come to you because you're the one, again, facilitating this conversation, which is why we invited you here to talk about this.
Well, I'm really excited. This has been kind of an ongoing conversation. And one of the things that I'm also hoping to address with them isn't necessarily just the entertainment aspects. You know, content consumption on Bluetooth has gotten really good. I still find that there's room to improve for things like signal stability, audio dropouts, obviously antenna design. Qualcomm is very interested with working with their manufacturing partners on that kind of stuff.
I want to be able to walk through the entire house with my really nice Sony headphones on. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to go all the way to the garage, still listening to the episode of Melrose Place that I started at the beginning of, like, you know, my list of chores. All right.
For sure.
That is like, it's so fun for me to just be fully ensconced in a show, you know, my shows, but also to be, you know, moving around the house and
definitely
between rooms.
Well, and that's the dream. That's the dream, right? Like,
it is the dream. It's a suburban dream.
I think we're pretty close to living that dream for you too, which is exciting. But on top of that entertainment aspect, I think it's one of the conversations I hope to bring with Qualcomm is also just a renewed, again, I want to broaden our community. I don't want to restrict it. And notions of hearing loss, of hearing health, better solutions for noise canceling so that we can listen at lower volumes, better ear detection, better fit and finish, and then accessibility. I recently just reviewed a product that is just a pass-through Bluetooth dongle for televisions so that you can still use audio from the television speakers. But then if you have a family member who's constantly turning the volume up and there's kind of a war in your living room happening, that doesn't work if we don't have impeccably low latency products. Mm-hmm. And so when I started broaching those kinds of conversations with Qualcomm, they were really receptive. And that to me means more than just, hey, do you have really nice earbuds? It's, are we really talking about the right tools for the right jobs so that everyone can be brought on for these types of solutions? Like, audio is such an experiential and personal form of wearable technology. I really don't want anyone to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Noble.
No user left behind.
No user left behind.
Well, I'm excited to see what comes of it. If it truly is what they have hyped up, I'll definitely be into it because, while I can barely hear because of my lack of wearing earplugs over the years while being a music journalist.
And and going to hardcore shows. Yes.
Well, yes. Yeah. Well, doing that by choice.
Well,
but
Ron, what I'm hoping is, I would say when it comes to true wireless and knowing your penchant for Bluetooth and wireless audio, what I think we're right on the cusp of. This isn't coming from Qualcomm. This is my own less learned market analysis. How exciting it's been to see lower and lower price points for things like active noise cancellation and true wireless, where a perfectly reasonable experience can be dropping not just under $100, but like in the $50 to $60 price range. And with all of these microphones and with all of this modeling, I think we're very close to helping guys like you out, where maybe you just need a little bit of a bump. Frequencies of sound around human speech, or the ability to block out noise in a busy cafe when we're all finally able to meet up face to face and break some bread. That to me becomes one of the next critical stages of audio and reproduction is opening up the doors for this kind of accessibility. Right now, the current trends that we're on, it's estimated, I think by 2040 or 2050, I can't remember the study now. Basically, 1 in 4 people on the planet are going to be experiencing some significant form of hearing degradation or hearing loss. So more people are going to end up like you right now, Ron, than working back against that trend, unless we get better tools into consumers' hands. And right now, I think we're finally making that transition to not just convenience, not just good audio reproduction, but really improving the entire listening experience. And those are really exciting conversations to have right now.
What? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Hey-o!
Those are exciting conversations to have right now, Ron.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about the
Ron,
next
that was
Samsung phone.
Good. Ron, that was so good. I cannot wait till one day your daughter uses that against you.
It's already. My wife and I got in an argument the other night, and she's like, "You cannot hear," and I'm like, "Whatever, it's fine." Turn up my buddy Valentine. I hear that.
In another year, you're just going to be walking around with live caption on a mic on your phone. All the time.
I'll be honest with you.
That's the future.
That sounds like a great option because especially with the kids sleeping in the other part of the house, the captions are always on the TV. It's gotten to the point now where I think it's great because I don't miss anything said. And the other day they weren't working on Paramount Plus. I was watching Paramount Plus, and I found it really hard to hear what people were saying. It was so it's if this can help that'd be great.
I'm still going to keep bugging you, Ron. One, I just recently put out a video on the Mi Audio Connect, which can feed a Bluetooth signal, low latency Bluetooth signal directly to your ears using aptX low latency. I am a partner for Qualcomm and Snapdragon Insiders. But also, I'm going to keep hounding you that I feel you need to be maybe catching a few more regular checkups with an audiologist because I love you like a brother and I don't want it to get worse, man. I want you to get better.
My response when people ask me if I've ever got my hearing checked out has always been like, why would I want to do that? I don't want to actually know. Like going back to my ignorant Android Auto experiences, ignorance is bliss here. I don't want to know how bad it actually is.
Well, next time I'm on the show, I'm going to tag you again and just be like, hey, Ron, have you scheduled that appointment with an audiologist? I know some folks down at UCLA that are really good. I can make some recommendations if you want to travel south.
I have to be able to get back. No, I'm in New York, man. I have to get back to LA. Oh, that's right.
You want to travel west.
Oh, man. I'd love to get to LA. Anyway, we can talk about that offline. But let's take a pause and thank our next sponsor while we ponder my hearing. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Udacity. There are a lot of tech jobs out there. But the question is, do you qualify enough to apply to one? So don't waste your valuable time and money. Udacity is the world's fastest, most efficient way to master the skills tech companies want with nano degrees. A Udacity nano degree program is a unique online educational offering designed to bridge the gap between learning and your career goals. Learn a suite of employable skills They partner with industry leaders and experts who understand the in-demand skills applicable to the job market. Once you enroll as a student in a specific course offering, you'll be prompted to view the online course as well as complete a series of projects and support courses designed to help you develop job-relevant skills. Udacity helps you build a portfolio on GitHub and LinkedIn to show your prospective employers. Learn to network, get noticed, and land the job you want. They say don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. Don't learn for the job you have, learn for the job you want with Udacity. There you go. You can build skills through industry-leading programs built and recognized by top companies around the world, such as IBM, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, AWS. People from all over the world are using Udacity now. They have incredible programs for you to choose from that fit the tech niche that you're looking for. AI, cloud computing, data science, autonomous systems programming, and development and product management and digital marketing, tech-adjacent roles Udacity courses prepare you for, and so many more. Improve your earning potential. Get real employable skills through project-based active learning that covers cutting-edge technology. Projects are reviewed by qualified professionals. You'll have real human help and personalized code reviews. Get access to qualified mentors 24/7. And what's great at all, if you're curious about it, you want to get started, Udacity also has free courses. They offer flexible payment options, and you can learn at your own pace and schedule. Udacity wants to help close the skills gap for the Black community. The Blacks in Technology Foundation is partnering with Udacity to provide 1,000 free scholarships to help increase educational and professional opportunities for the Black community. The first cohort of 2021 includes 150 scholarships, and applications open up in March. And here we are in March, so they are open. Both organizations want to increase diversity in tech roles by creating a pipeline of qualified candidates in desirable fields such as programming for data science, product management, cloud DevOps engineering. So it's just a great opportunity. If you know someone who can qualify, it's a great opportunity to get those skills, to learn those jobs. I do a lot of hiring in my career, and I've gotten less and less focused on what college somebody went to or what degree they have, and more about what skills they have. If someone can show me that they know how to do something, if they're an expert in that field, if they have the skills, if they have the portfolio to show it, they become more hireable and more attractive to help complete that job. And Udacity is a great way to do it at a low price. For a limited time, when you go to udacity.com/twit and use code TWIT75, you'll get 75% off through March 22nd, 2021. After March 22nd, you'll receive the original offer of 50% off when you use coupon code TWIT, and the discount will be applied at checkout. That's udacity.com/twit. And thanks, Udacity, for making us smarter. Nano degrees, they're awesome. Thanks, Udacity.
Thank you, Udacity. All right. It is now time. Well, we got some hardware to talk about. Let's do it.
We
do.
Well, it looks like nothing has got something to show off. And speaking, of course, we were on the topic of wireless audio just a little bit ago. So now we're going to be talking about some true wireless earbuds, which, if you've been watching this show or listening to this podcast, you know have been all the rage lately in the tech news. So Concept One is what it's called, and it's a render of a design that could hint at a future nothing design. So remember, anytime a startup comes out and they kind of put something out into the world, that's just a nice little preview. It's sort of what their aesthetic is going to be, how they're going to approach this whole, industry. So how Concept One is going to approach us is by looking like a teeny tiny little part off of an F1 race car. That's what I thought, at least. Anyway, that's my opinion, not the opinion of the Twit Network and All About Android hosts. Now, nothing told The Verge that while the same design principles will be followed and there will be similarities to Concept One, the end product will look different. So what we see in those renders could be something entirely different when we get to it. Now, nothing says that the design embodies the three elements of its design philosophy, which is weightlessness, effortlessness, and timelessness. Lessness. They also point out the lack of branding and transparent materials on the actual device or, in the concept render, and as kind of a hint of what to expect. Brandlessness.
Brandlessness.
Yes.
Anyway, this is not going to be. This is going to be their first product, but it's not going to be their only. So this is just sort of the beginning of something. Beginning of something.
From nothing.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
From nothing, exactly.
There is
From
a brand.
nothing to
There's
something.
branding on that thing. That says nothing.
That's true. It does say nothing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it says
What
nothing.
does it say in the What does it say in the lower right? Does it say nothing?
It says
Yeah,
nothing.
it says nothing. Upside down,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, there it is.
For those
Yeah.
listening to the audio, it says the word nothing.
Nothing.
If you
It says
haven't
the word
gathered by
nothing.
now,
It's not
it
like
does
The
actually
Who?
say nothing.
The who?
God, I still can't get used to this name, nothing.
I want to know how this is supposed to go in my ear. I'm very curious why hello hair in the preview shot. Sorry. I'm very curious about whether True Wireless is sort of like the first. Why is this the journey? And I mean, look, I hate to bring up Andy Rubin after like everything he's done. But this kind of reminds me a little bit of Essential in not just Essential, actually. Also, remember back in the day when Xiaomi was run by Hugo Barra?
Yeah.
Back in the day. And they had a little press conference, I remember, in San Francisco that I covered for wherever I was working at that time. And they didn't launch a phone because they didn't have the ability. They didn't have like the licensing or anything like that. But instead they launched a pair of headphones.
Oh, really?
Something.
Yeah.
This is like the thing that they do.
Well, and Xiaomi sort of, kind of backed the play on brands like One More. So it's definitely there's like a tech audio crossover where it seems like you can start a supply chain and you can start a brand and you can start a conversation with consumers with audio, with headphones. And right now, True Wireless is hot. So
That's
it kind of makes sense
interesting.
that, yeah.
But it's because it's hot. You're saying that, right? It's not because I think back then it was. Am I, Burke?
No,
why am I diagonal?
I didn't want to take away from the audio listeners, but for our video listeners that are watching, Flo has a very early '90s MTV shot going on right now. There it is. Yeah. So
There we go.
Well, I'm worried. I was like, did something happen over here?
I was gonna mention it in our private chat, but audio listeners. Let's carry on with the conversation, please.
Oh, man. Well, you heard it from Juan. TWE is in, y'all. Wait. TWE. True Wireless.
TWS is the...
Right, TWS, True Wireless Stereo, but they are earbuds. That works too. This thing's weird. I don't know. I feel like nothing... I feel like at this point, nothing is going to disappoint. Like... And I want to enjoy the ride, but I'm not captivated by the nothing experience at this point. I'm more and more.
There's nothing to be captivated by. Jason.
True.
Yeah,
True.
Jason wants something to be captivated by, not nothing.
Yeah, give me a thing. Something. Nothing. Give me a thing to latch onto.
By building hype train, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of really fun marketing. There are a lot of sort of high concept ideas being shared.
Wait. Wasn't Carl Pei the one that was doing the hype tweets with OnePlus?
Well, I mean, as sort of kicking off OnePlus and especially
no. Like and I apologize if I'm wrong about this, but I could have sworn that he would tweet about the OnePlus and then would tweet like hype, like just one word hype, like retweet somebody.
I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Here's the thing. There's actually some really interesting things that we could look at for True Wireless. I feel like we've missed some of the future of UI and gadget interactions through audio. There's so much more potential there beyond what we've currently tapped into with our sort of, I want to set a timer with Google Assistant, and that's about as much as I use it for. So I think there are some solid opportunities for a company to come in and disrupt and kind of take eyeballs off screens and put controls in your ears. But right now, this process of like what Nothing is doing and buying up sort of the remnants of Essential and kind of playing this like cloak and daggery kind of marketing game, it makes me anxious that what we're going to get is just sort of a normal pair of true wireless. And then from there, we're going to get some other accessories, and eventually they're going to launch a phone. I'm hopeful, though, because I would love to see, like, there were some little good ideas with LG Tones. There were some little good ideas with Google Pixel Buds. There were some little good ideas with AirPods and AirPods Pro. And I just feel like we haven't given it the right nudge. Like, I want an interaction that can be more like the movie Her. I want to be able to carry out some really rich and in-depth interactions on my phone without ever having to look at the screen. And I feel like we're close. So if a company could just kind of give us the nudge over that edge and show us a way to make that consumer accessible, that would be really exciting. I think that could be another next stage for mobile technology. I don't know that it's going to be coming from nothing.
Well, it's got to come from something.
Yeah, exactly, Ron.
This is like a Mel Brooks movie. Jesus.
You know what? Good for us. I like that for us. I like this for us.
I mean, Juan, you mentioned the movie Her, and that it's funny because the more and more I use Google Assistant now, the more it's frustrating and not doing what I want it to do. The number of times I argue with the Google Home Hub because I ask it to do something and it doesn't complete the task or can't, you didn't word it rightly. And a lot of my complaints come with YouTube Music and Google Assistant, the way they work together, where the number of times it's serving up German versions of the Frozen soundtrack, when I didn't ask for that at all, or any, or like the other, this is more YouTube. I don't want to get on my YouTube Music horse, but the other day I was doing the dishes in the kitchen.
Here we go.
And I said, okay, Google, play some Sam Cooke. And it played a lovely Sam Cooke song. It was fantastic. And the next song was from The Lion King. And I was like, listen, I understand I have kids and I do it, but like Google Play Music used to know that when I was listening. Oh, wow. Now I triggered my assistant.
For sure.
Yeah, you just triggered mine too.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Sorry. But Google Play, I'm sorry. That's how ranty I got. No, Google Play Music used to know when you were listening to a genre of music to keep playing you songs of that genre and not mix genres. So.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to your same frustrations, it's like one of my sort of recent interactions with Android Auto, where I asked for directions, and instead of giving me directions, it corrected my syntax on how to ask for directions. And it was like everything I could do to not throttle a non-existent person living in my car, where it's like, you knew what I was trying to accomplish. I'm operating a motor vehicle right now. You're still not giving me the data that I requested. And you're telling me how to properly ask for the data that you already understood I was asking for. And I'm not even talking about like later in the movie Her, where you've got like the full AI. Just watch the very beginning where they've got these really rich audio interactions. And it's a shame because like I said, the really good ideas like on LG Tones, where they would have a button that wasn't really an assistant button, but you could do like voice replies and it would read off your messages, and you could very simply control individual like notifications and rich content replies. And we start losing some of those features because they say, well, you can use Google Assistant, and Google Assistant can't do that. Google Assistant can't give me that. So we need someone else to kind of give us a layer on top that can kind of dig down into our apps and into our services. And it seems like we keep kind of taking steps away from that, not getting closer to better rich interactions.
Yeah, indeed. Well, this company name called OnePlus keeps coming up. So why don't we talk about OnePlus a little bit? Because apparently their marketing arm is in full effect right now. OnePlus is gearing up for the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro release, which usually the major release happens about this time of year for OnePlus anyways. So we're kind of expecting to hear about it. Now they've tweeted out a video showcasing the OnePlus 9 Pro, or at least showing the camera bump portion of it, along with a launch date for the phone, Tuesday, March 23rd. When you look at that, you see that there is a word emblazoned there, and it's Hasselblad. Camera manufacturer, respected camera manufacturer Hasselblad, apparently in a partnership with OnePlus. Their promotional materials for the event highlight a large moon in the sky. You know, it's a moon that's bouncing through the streets.
When
and in the photo,
moon
it's just
hits
gigantic.
your eyes.
Lots of hints, obviously, pointing at photography being the really big focus of the OnePlus 9. Or I don't know if the Hasselblad partnership is just the 9 Pro. Remains to be seen. But curious to know what you all think about this. Is it significant for Hasselblad to have a partnership with OnePlus? Does this signal that you feel confident that the OnePlus camera is suddenly going to be so much better than it was? Or is this just a branding play, which we've definitely seen that before too, where it's like, okay, yeah, sure, it's got the name, but it's kind of same quality that we're used to. Same as it ever was.
So how different is this than when Hasselblad worked with Motorola?
It's got to be tremendously different. The Hasselblad Moto Mod was not good. It's got to be better than that. No, it wasn't.
I mean, we hope that it's better than that, but it doesn't have to be better than that.
The camera on the back of the Moto Z was better than the camera in the Hasselblad Moto Mod. It just didn't have a physical zoom. I mean, like a phone from 3 years ago is going to be better than that Moto Mod. I'm very positive. I'll eat this red hat on camera with soy sauce if the camera on the OnePlus 9 is not better than the Hasselblad Moto Mod. And hold me to it.
I wonder if they're doing this to try and I'm very curious about this just because Hasselblad is not a name that I have really been uttering the last couple of years. I know that I believe Huawei had some branding with them a couple years back.
Was it Leica?
No, I think Huawei did
Leica. I'm thinking of it. And I know now all camera enthusiasts now are going to come and be like, don't you know? I do know. I'm sorry. It's late.
We got it. You're good. It's fine.
Yeah, but the idea here is, OnePlus is... I've been really enjoying using the OnePlus 8 since last summer. It's been a very different experience, and yet in some ways the same as what it was with the Pixel. But that camera quality, man, it is nothing like what I had with the Pixels. And I wonder if this is a sort of attempt to try and leverage their camera abilities a little bit by just aligning themselves with somebody, who knows what it's like when Lady Gaga aligned herself with Tony Bennett. It just gave her some street cred that she didn't quite have before, especially after Madonna called her reductive.
No, I'm really glad you brought it up that way because I think that was also mutually beneficial. There were a lot of younger music fans who got exposed to Tony Bennett. This is exactly why I'm positive on Hasselblad making this move. It's been interesting.
I didn't think about it that way either.
Yeah, but it's interesting because so many traditional camera manufacturers have been reluctant to play in the mobile space for fear of diluting their brand. I mean, look at Hasselblad did the Moto Mod and then vanished from mobile. Like there have been no other Hasselblad mobile partnerships until now. Yep. And it's very touchy. I think Leica and Huawei weathered it well because there was that initial controversy like, oh, they're putting a Leica sticker on the camera, but it's not really Leica glass. It's a smartphone camera. Slow your roll there. Chill out. But what we saw from Huawei was actually a tangible improvement to their color science, to their reproduction, their white balance. The photography on Huawei cameras got better for the knowledge that they got out of that Leica certification. And I'm very hopeful for something like that on OnePlus. I mean, I love shooting on the OnePlus 8 Pro. From a hardware perspective, this is one of the most formidable cameras you can have on a phone. A main camera sensor that's near the size of a Samsung Ultra, the largest ultra wide. It's the only camera that can go from standard to ultra wide while shooting 4K 60. All of the mechanics are there, but we can always point to some of those squishy bits in a OnePlus camera app. So if we've got Hasselblad sort of influencing their software, their post-processing, their color science, their HDR capabilities, I think that's a win-win. Hasselblad gets some access to a new generation of photography enthusiasts, and OnePlus gets to benefit from finally polishing up software on what has been consistently very competitive hardware.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see how if it lives up to Hasselblad.
Yeah,
and it's just always fun.
I'll be really curious, Jason, just because we say things like, will it hold up? I'll be curious to see if a OnePlus 9 or a OnePlus 9 Pro with, again, guts that are similar or competitive to a Samsung Ultra, I'll be curious to see how those reviews go down, because if OnePlus photo output is just different than Samsung and Apple, there's always the concern like, well, I mean, obviously Samsungs are more popular, so this is what consumers want in their photos, and OnePlus doesn't do that, so the photos aren't as good. Right. When you look at the raw files that the OnePlus 8 Pro is capable of spitting out and how it goes toe-to-toe with some of the footage that you would want to edit from a Note 20 Ultra or an S21 Ultra, I mean, the footage is stunning. The images are incredible for a phone camera. What kind of holds us back is a little of that polish on like shutter lag, a little of sometimes the HDR gets a little out of control. But Samsung is just as guilty of that. You know, shutter lag on the S21, I'm missing shots of my daughter at the park unless I'm shooting in pro mode because she's a rambunctious Tasmanian devil of a 5-year-old. So I don't like auto HDR when I'm trying to track her down. We're never as consistently critical of those differences. And I feel like OnePlus, for whatever reason, around the OnePlus 5, we all just sort of decided they have terrible cameras. But I don't think that's really been true if we're really trying to judge consistently across the various manufacturers.
And Ron, you got the last one, and it's all about wearables.
Wearables. How do you go from OnePlus and cameras and stuff to wearables? But here we are with possibly a new Moto 360. 9 to 5 Google published leaked photos from a 2021 product roadmap for Motorola, and it appears to showcase an upcoming Moto 360 smartwatch. And the detail in the image shows a Snapdragon Wear 4100. And for those of you, if you're not keeping track at home, there's only one smartwatch currently, the TicWatch Pro 3, running the latest Wear 4100 chip. And that was announced last September, more than 6 months ago. The Wear 4100 promises 85% faster CPU, 2.5 times faster GPU, 25% more battery life. Also a jump from the 28 nm process to 12 nm. And the image also shows wireless charging coils, hinting that it might finally ditch the pogo pin method for charging and move to wireless. And this is important because here we are in 2021. The last Moto 360 was in 2019, running a Snapdragon 3100. And that was a branding deal by eBuyNow, which is now CE Brands. So, Flo, you're Miss Wearable. And you were making noises as I blew through all that stuff. Does this pique your interest in any way, shape, or form?
I'm making noises just because the 4100, the Snapdragon Wear 4100, it was announced last summer. You know, we keep talking about it being like this chip that's going to fix a bunch of stuff for Wear OS. I like the idea of this hardware. It's going to probably end up being really nice hardware because we saw the last watch that this little group that got together that they're calling themselves Moto. We saw that they managed to put something together really nice. So
I will admit, and for video watchers, Burke just had an image of the phone of the watch, and they have the Motorola logo etched in the little dial on the side, and that's a nice little design touch. I like that.
It's very watch-like, like when you're making a watch.
Sorry, Flo, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I just thought that detail.
Listen, guys, we're going to keep on covering this because I think Wear OS is going to try really hard this year to try and set a better foundation for itself. Like, I see a lot of it from a lot of other gadget companies, sort of like, hey, let's prepare our product lineups for when the world sort of goes back. And so I feel like Wear OS is going to try and come back out and surprise us.
We're all going to have places to be. We're going to need a watch to look at when we're like late. I mean, like, we're going to look at our wrist. It's like, I don't wear a watch anymore because I'm at home.
I need to get a notification and rudely interrupt this conversation we're having. Hold on. I've got just a second. No, have you guys not really played with the new TicWatch?
No, I have not.
The TicWatch 3? Okay.
No. You like
the Wear 4100 is everything that you were saying, Flo. Interactions are so much smoother. The fluidity of the UI is, I don't think anything's going to touch an Apple Watch anytime soon, but it is so much better. And when you're trying to use little applets, it actually makes sense now to try and use a couple short interactions from your watch as opposed to going through your phone. Like, it really can be now that convenience thing that Wear OS has always promised. I have been loving the experience on the TicWatch TicWatch 3 Pro 3 something. They just announced the TicWatch S for better water resistance for people who want to take the watch swimming. The sort of Mobvoi and Tic wearable brand has been pretty well ahead of the curve, being one of the last ones still supporting, next to Fossil. It's really cleaned up a lot.
Well, I probably, honestly, I wouldn't go back to Wear OS unless maybe Samsung were, because thus far they've been the only ones that have really given a watch that fits my wrist comfortably.
Funny you should say that.
Because Samsung actually does design for people like me.
Well,
like, I mean, really critical. Specific.
Wow. Oh man, gloves are off on all about Android. It just got real in here. No, but Flo, I mean, isn't there also like a rumor or a story out that Samsung's going to be coming back to Wear OS?
Yes, that's why I brought that up. Yeah,
gotcha.
That's sort of why I mentioned it off the cuff. So
you sent me the softball pitch, and instead of giving you the yes and, I was like, well, actually, let me tell you, Flo. I'm mansplaining over here. I totally misread your signal there. I apologize.
Guys, we'll we've got a couple emails we need to get through. Shall we maybe shift gears here?
That's right. We do. Up next, a few of your emails. If you want to send us emails, you should. If you want to, why don't you do it? AAA@twit.tv. That's all you need to do, and then we'll get it. We might read it, like this email that Flo's going to read first.
That's right. This email, this is fun. This one comes in from Chad. Chad writes in, we are excited to be getting our first smart speaker. We got the Lenovo Smart Clock Essential. Being our first smart speaker, we are a little unsure where to start. I was wondering if you could share some tips for getting started. What are your favorite or essential tasks for a smart speaker? Any mistakes to avoid? I would love to hear each of your thoughts. Chad, I did put together just a really quick list of things you should hit. And this is for anybody who brings home either the Smart Clock Essential or the regular Lenovo Smart Clock. The difference between the two is the Essential is a pared down alarm clock, so it's going to look like the one that you had by your bedside between 1986 and 1997. So that's kind of cool, except it has the Google Assistant built in, and that's the one that Chad is writing it about. Now, for this one, I would suggest for you first, set up a good morning routine. Annoyingly, you can't do this from the smart clock itself, but you can do that through the Google Home app that you need to pair with the smart clock. Then I would like for you to set up your alarms with the good morning routine to play at the end. You might also consider pairing this with the sunrise alarm so that when it is waking you up, you get a gradual sound that just kind of gets louder and louder and louder as it goes. Remember also that you can say stop anytime you want an alarm or a timer to go off. You don't have to say OKG. However, if you do want to snooze, you do have to ask it OKG snooze. I think you can say that.
Oh, you can't just say snooze?
I think that's what I say when I'm napping and I want to snooze.
That's unfortunate. You can't just say snooze. If you could say stop, but you can't say snooze. I know,
that's the annoying thing, is that you'll be like half awake and then you're like, okay, G, snooze. And then G is like, okay, 10 more minutes. And then you're like, God, you're acting like my parent. Who programmed you to do that? That's just a side note.
And then it's like, Flo, I learned it from watching you.
Yes.
Exactly.
I
don't know. Do you guys have any quick things you want to add to this?
I mean, I just thought this was a fun, quick one, because I'm sure we all use our smart speakers differently. Like for me, my essentials are playing music. Like I'm always throwing music to my smart speakers, and Family Bell. Family Bell is like, like instrumental for this house with distance learning with our kids. And actually, my wife and I also have our own family bells so that I don't forget to attend, our Tuesday morning editorial meeting. It's basically like a timed bell that has an announcement. So your 10:30 meeting is about to begin, and it's just, oh man, we rely on it now. So that's my tip.
And along with Family Bell, I love Broadcast. It's just so much fun to play with, like throwing your voice.
The baby needs milk right now.
I was going to say, I used Broadcast once, and my wife said never again. She's like, no. She's like, no, we're not doing that. So
I use it. I am the worst. I always do it. I will do it just like, can you bring me a glass of water? Can I have a piece of toast?
She nipped that in the bud real quickly. My main smart speaker thing, of course, with the music, but for me, it's just having the linkage to the assistant and having all the smart bulbs around the house. So like, as I'm walking to a room, I just yell, "Okay, G, turn on the light in Remo's room," and then by the time I get there, it's on, and that sort of thing.
Which you can add to the routine, by the way. So when you go set up that routine and you have any smart things in your house, you can, have your nightstand light, if it's a smart bulb, like wake you up to a certain percentage of lightness, that sort of thing. So it's nice to get creative.
Yeah. Indeed. Have fun with it.
Oh yeah, we complain about Google and ecosystem and apps, but sort of quietly simmering under all of that, Google and ecosystem and home has gotten real strong. I mean, just the way that these things interoperate has improved tremendously.
Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah.
Have fun with it, Chad.
Yeah, definitely have fun with it. Get creative. Okay, on to our next quick email, which I teased at the top of the show. Lee wrote in and said, this is in response to the issue Ron was describing and getting night mode enabled for Google Maps and Android Auto. I had a similar problem when I recently switched vehicles. I'm running a Pixel 5 with dark theme enabled 24/7 and have a 2021 Subaru Outback. To get Android Auto to switch to night mode when my headlights are on, I had to turn the internal cabin light dimmer down at least one notch. Then Android Auto changes to night mode. To clarify, the internal cabin light dimmer controls the brightness setting of the interior display, such as the speedometer, tachometer. I like this option because if my headlights automatically turn on before it's really dark out, I can turn up my display setting in my car all the way up, and then Android Auto switches back to day mode. And Gary, as Jason mentioned, also sent in a photo of this so we can see exactly where it is. And thank you again to everyone who reached out and let me know. I can confirm that, in fact, this does work. And I'm just fascinated that Android Auto is connected to the dimmer switch. Like, that was a connection I didn't even think could happen with Android Auto. So very impressed by that. And I just drove to get Greek food for dinner before we did the show, and Android Auto was in dark mode because I clicked it one notch. So there it is.
Styling.
Yeah.
Ron is styling now in dark mode.
Ignorant.
Thank you, Lee and Gary, for writing in. And thank you to Chris in Washington, D.C., who is our email of the week.
Da, da, da.
I don't know if it was that thing where we can't hear. Okay, there we go. Okay. I seriously didn't know if maybe I just didn't hear it, but it actually sounded.
Soundboard.
Woo! All right. Chris says, your story about the Galaxy S2 getting a Lineage OS update brought back bad memories about my experience with Samsung phones. I bought the Galaxy S, my third phone after the G1 and the HTC Hero. When I received it, it had Android 2.1 installed and was rather buggy. Android 2.2 was eventually released in North America, but required that I download a Windows desktop application to update the phone. My, we've come a long way, haven't we? Android 2.3 was eventually released, but not for the version of the phone that I had, so it was forever stuck on 2.2. I moved to a remote area that really only had Verizon, so I used the S as a trade-in on the Galaxy Nexus, another phone that Samsung abandoned because they used a TI chipset that was no longer being supported. When I ditched the Galaxy Nexus in 2012, I vowed to no longer buy a Samsung phone. Fast forward to last year, when Google stopped making high-end Pixel phones. I decided to take the plunge and get a Z Fold 2. I am overall happy with it, and Samsung seems to have learned how to make Android phones for long-term support. I just thought that was a fun trip down memory lane when I read it. I was like, oh, yes, I remember these headaches, these issues, and the TI chipset that plagued the Galaxy Nexus. And all
wasn't
of that
the Verizon the worst flavor of that? Like for support, looking back on it?
Yes. I think at the time I called it the Fallacy Nexus. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember that. Yep.
Sick.
It wasn't a true Nexus.
Yeah, right? Wasn't. That's savage burn, man.
Yeah.
I remember
that. I was proud of that. So, Chris, thank you for taking us on a trip down memory lane. I hope you continue to enjoy your Z Fold 2. I thought it was pretty cool when I played around with it, but I didn't live with it long term. So send us an email somewhere down the line. Let us know how that honeymoon is going. And maybe then again, you'll be the email of the week.
Nailed
it. All right. We have done it. We have reached the end of this episode. You know, each and every week we do this show, we succeed by reaching the end of the show. We're just that awesome. We do it every time. There's not a single episode that we haven't ended. We're awesome. Juan, always a pleasure getting you on, man. Thank you so much for hopping on tonight and sharing your views and all this stuff. What do you want people to know as far as like what you're working on, where they can find your work, all that stuff?
Oh, I mean, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, the best place to kind of scout things out is somegadgetguy.com. I'm doing my Monday morning tech news and tech politics podcast every Monday. I'm doing a stream with TK Bay every Thursday, just kind of wrapping up our favorite tech stories of the week. I've got a video coming out on reviews.org. Talking about the emergency broadband benefit. So just hopefully some relief for American households out there that might be struggling over the last year. I'm going to be doing a gamer stream probably in a couple weeks with Newegg, doing some PC building news. And I've got an interview coming up with a Qualcomm engineer to talk about Snapdragon Sound. So I'm all over the place. This has been harvest season for me, and I couldn't be happier just to have lots of really fun projects to work on.
You're busy.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, right on. Well, congratulations on being busy. It's nice when it happens like that. And thanks for hopping on. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate it, Juan.
Always a show I love to join you guys on. Again, just I like talking to you guys, and hopefully soon we'll be able to maybe make an in-person. I'll trek north once we all have our shots and stuff, and we can make that happen.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be fantastic. All right, Flo, what do you want to point people to? What's going on with you?
What's going on with me? I mean, there's a lot going on with me, as you know, but I'm not going to get into it here. Instead, I'm going to tell you that you can go to florenceion.com or flowrights.tech, which will take you to my newly updated recents page. And there's links there to a recent story I did for Gizmodo and for Lifehacker and, whatever's been posting. I'm always working on stuff in the background, and I will let you know when it comes out. Also, if anybody is, interested in another podcast about this sort of thing, you can come to the Relay FM network. I have a podcast there called Material that I do with Andy and Notco every week. So come check us out there. And lastly, I've been trying something very different with some new little different mediums. If you're in my Discord, let me know. Tune in. And there's a link floating around my site if you're interested in joining. I've been starting to use like the voice chat room to kind of do like random voice chats. I just find it to be a lot easier than Twitch. So just something to think about if you're interested in, hearing me read my horoscope, which is what I did last night. I learned how to read my horoscope, do my chart. So that's the
nice.
Why are you telling us this, Flo? Because this is what I do in my free time.
And you're
let
invited.
Me know if you're around. Let me know.
Love it. Thank you, Flo. Flowrights.tech. All right, Ron, what you got?
Yeah, so you can go follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at RonXO over there. And on the side, I've got a fun startup called Scorebit where we're connecting pinball machines to the internet. And last week we announced and threw a link for Burke to share with everybody on the video stream from our Instagram account. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, a recent newer game by Jersey Jack Pinball, now works on the Scorebit platform. We rolled that out in partnership with Jersey Jack Pinball. It's our second machine working with them. It's very cool. If you own one of those pinball machines, all you got to do is pair your machine to the app, which you can get in the Google Play Store, and it works magically. No hardware needed. Very cool. So pinball connectivity dominance continues thanks to Scorbit.
Amazing.
So, yeah, go to scorbit.io, check it out. So.
Right on. Go Scorbit.
Sometimes.
Big thanks to Burke at the studio for clicking all those links that we add to the doc very last minute, right when we get to the end of the show. Also, big thanks to Victor for editing the show behind the scenes and bringing it to you. Without either of those gentlemen, you would not see this show in your podcast feed. It just wouldn't happen.
Absolutely true. And I have to also just say, without Victor, I would not have a robust and burgeoning Pokemon card collection. So thank you again for that, Victor.
Hey.
I'll forever be indebted to you for that. I'm serious.
If you want a Pokemon card collection, all you have to do is email Victor. His email address is, no, I'm not going to give that to you. Let's see here. twit.tv/hot131. If you go there, you're going to find my review. I pit the Jobber Elite 85T against the Galaxy Buds Pro. I put them into a cage and they fight it out. And I show you just the many ways in which they're actually very similar. It's kind of cool. So check that out. twit.tv/hot131. It's episode 131 of Hands on Tech. And you can see what I did there. Don't forget to wear a mask and save lives. Appreciate that you're doing that. Thank you. And that's it for this week. We appreciate you watching and listening each and every week. We publish this show on Tuesday evenings. Go to twit.tv/AAA if you want to find all the information on how to subscribe to our audio feed, our video feed. Jump out to YouTube, subscribe there. The many things that you need to know about this show are all there. twit.tv/AAA. And that's it for this week. We'll see y'all next week on another episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.